We're getting close to the summer solstice, and so I thought I would do a little update on some plant projects that I'm doing around the property here. And this is going to be building upon what we talked about in the first video in this series, where I showed you the big lawn in sort of late winter, early spring, before anything was really growing, and it looks very different now. My goal for this first year that I'm here, because it's a new location, is really just to get to know the landscape, get to know where are the wet areas, where are the dry areas, how does the sun move through, and where are the sunny spots, and start to get some of the initial plantings in the ground. So let's take a look at what we've got going. One of my first goals for this year is just to get some of the plant stock started for actually getting things in the ground and having some shrubs established. And the budget for this project is basically zero right now. So other than these seeds and some of the garden soil, just to get them started, really haven't spent any money on any of this. And so it's cool to see how much you can actually do with zero budget. It's like $20 here that I've spent to get this thing started. So what I have so far are these 4 pots right here are Saskatoon Berry, and there's 2 in this one, there's 2 in this one, 2 in here, and 1 in here. And these are all started from seed. So I'm gonna let them grow out in the pots this summer, and then when fall comes around, when things go dormant, I'll transplant them out into their more permanent homes out in the yard, which I'll show you in a few moments. I'm still deciding where everything's gonna go. These ones here, there's 4 in here, 3 in here, and 1 in here. These are Seaberries, and again, all started from seed. So they're going to be unique varieties, but I'm hoping that some of them will be male and some of them will be female, and that I'll have enough to work with there. Over here, I have Kiwis, and these are the hardy Kiwis grown from seeds that I saved from berries that I got last year. So I actually didn't, other than buying some fruit, which I also got to eat, I didn't actually spend any money to get these ones started. And again, I'm hoping that some of these will be male and some of them will be female, and I'll just have to figure that out as time goes on. And back here I have an elderberry. I think it's a black beauty elderberry. It's starting to get some of the black coming in, and this was started from a cutting from the place where I lived before. And so this one I will actually be planting in a few weeks. Once it gets just a little bit bigger, I'll plant it this year, and it can grow this year. All of these plants have things that are valuable to me, either in the form of fruit or fertility, in the case of the Seaberries, and I'll be able to multiply these plants, and every year I'll start a few different species, and so we can get the diversity up, and I'll slowly be moving them out and planting things out, and it's a way that I can get a lot of plants started without having to spend a fortune on the initial start. One other thing I wanted to mention, this one here is interesting in that when it first came up, this Saskatoon Berry was different from all the others in that the initial set of leaves that came up, there were 3 leaves, and all the other ones had 2 seedling leaves. I don't know what you call them, but when a seed first comes up, it grows a pair of leaves that are they're not adult leaves. Like, they don't actually look like the leaves that the plant will have when it's full growing and looks like the plant that it's supposed to be. And, you know, usually there's just 2 of them, but for whatever reason, this one here had 3 of them. And it, of all the Saskatoons that I have here, it's growing the best. So I find that interesting, and so I've marked it, and I'm gonna keep track of how it does over time, and I think it'll be an interesting experiment in genetics. Another thing that has happened is I've got the rain barrels installed, so I have one of them over here, and we just had a lot of rain in the last week, so it is totally full right now, but it's nice that I have all the water I need to take care of the plants, even while they're in the pots and they're going to be, you know, drying out a lot faster. I won't have any problems keeping them watered with the rain barrels. So I have this one, and I also have this rain barrel on the front. This is like the south side of the house, and it's a large catchment area for this one. So this one fills up really quickly, and yeah, it's plenty of water. Also here at the front, I have just a few herbs started that, you know, the thinking behind this was to just have a place where I can start to get some of the herbs established, and they're not super huge yet, and it's a little bit weedy, so because I have some yarrow here, and even some grass, which doesn't need to be there, some sorrel, which doesn't need to be there. But it's really this guy here that I'm interested in, the oregano, and once it gets established, it'll get a lot bigger than this, and I won't really have to worry about weeds. That's why I'm not really super concerned about it. But just a few things that I packed in here, probably too tightly. You know, the spacing is very close together, and again, it just makes it easier to manage it for weeds and stuff. I can come through and I can chop and drop, and I can pull weeds and things, and it goes pretty quickly. I've got some English thyme here. This is anise hyssop, which is a mint family plant that smells like licorice. This is actually echinacea growing up here. Here I have one of my favorite perennial salad greens. This is salad burnet, and it is a very vigorous grower. It's I'm hoping it does all right in the sand here, but it has these little leaflets that are just super delicious in salad. I eat them pretty much every day, and they kind of taste like cucumber. It's just a fantastic perennial. It comes back year after year. It spreads out in a way that's easy to control, but also lets you multiply the plant really fast if you want to. So yeah, salad burnet is a really great one. This is like a ground creeping chamomile that I'm just going to spread out and move into different places where I want a nice ground cover. Probably around, like a lot of those shrubs that I showed you before, will be able to have some of this chamomile around the base, and it'll help with weeds and to bring in fertility and scent. It smells really good too. These here are my Egyptian walking onions, and they're doing really great. They're starting to put on some top sets, and these will grow like little onion bulbs, and then at the end of summer they'll kind of fall over, and I'll cover them with compost or mulch or whatever I have around, soil, and then they will root into that, and I'll be able to, that's what I did with these ones here. That's what all these ones are. And so I'll be able to pick these up and eventually move them out to be around shrubs and things. So it'll be, just a whole bunch of plants all living together. different types of plants. Here's some French tarragon growing up very nicely. And I have garlic in there too. You won't be able to see it because it's just it's a mishmash of stuff, but I do have a fair amount of garlic planted that I'm just going to leave as a perennial. My goal is not to use the garlic, to harvest it this year, but just to let it establish and become a perennial, and to keep some protection from the deer and that kind of stuff. And growing as weeds all over this property are these little yarrows. So wherever I see them, I'm trying to leave them and I'll let them grow. I also have some peppermint growing right around the front porch here, and it'll spread out and it'll grow, and I'll be able to divide it and move it to different places where I want ground cover, and it'll be able to be used for tea or chop and drop, whatever I need to do with it. So it's a lot of detail. Hopefully I'm not going into too much detail here, but I have some potatoes that I was trying to start in there. They're not really doing all that much in some leaves. I've never really tried growing potatoes that way, so we'll see if they actually come up. If they don't come up, then I'm just going to fill it up with mulch and use that to just start the next garden bed, because this whole area in front of the house is going to be gardens that will just sort of move down. And this is a fennel I planted, and it's growing quite well. I just planted it like last week, so it's just getting established. And this is lovage that will grow up, so this will get pretty tall. Right along here between the two sheds, I strung up some string and I planted peas. They are planted all the way along, and it's interesting being in a new location. You never really know how things are going to grow. The previous place that I was just had this clay soil which soaked up so much moisture that the peas grew amazing there, and never had any problems. And here I haven't done anything different with the peas down here as the peas up here, but I think what's happening, and the one at the top is growing a little bit better. I think what's happening here is that the soil is it's so sandy, and even if I just back up a little bit, there's like just bare ground, and it's not that this area hasn't been disturbed. There hasn't really been anything to prevent things from growing here, other than the fact that it's so sandy. And I think what happens is especially on this slope here, because it is kind of a slope, the water just kind of rolls down and it doesn't soak in. So, but it'll get better as I put on deep mulching and get the soil to work a little bit better. I think it'll be interesting to see how things grow better in future years. Well, I think we'll be able to see a pretty big difference as time goes on. Right along here, down in the lower field, it might be a little bit hard to see right here, but there's a whole row of black currants that were given to me by my friend David. So thanks to David, I have the first line of one of my boundaries for the main growing area, which this whole area is going to be encased in the shrubs and kiwis and all that stuff that I was showing you earlier, and so it's going to be a process getting it there. But basically what I've done is, in this very sandy, mossy mix of gravel and sand, I put these black currant cuttings in, gave them a deep mulch with straw that I'll have to, I'm going to continue making it deeper through the year. And there's actually garlic growing up around them as well. Right here I put in some fennel, and so that one's growing up. And it just kind of goes all the way down the row. You know, there's, I think, maybe just 7 or 8 of them right now. And there's going to be, I think I'm going to end up putting the Seaberries in this row as well. There's lovage in there. It's going to be like a food forest. So there'll be ground covers, there'll be herbaceous plants, low growing shrubs, high shrubs, with the canopy probably maxing out at around, 10 or 15 feet. I don't want it to be a huge canopy because I still want lots of sunshine here, but I'll be able to grow lots of fruit and lots of interesting things. I also discovered in a number of spots that there is just growing naturally here. There are low bush blueberries, and so that's kind of cool. It's actually, I can see a bunch of there's a bunch of blueberries growing right there, and so that's one of the reasons I like spending the first year just not really doing too much change to the landscape, but just watching what is already happening that you can kind of work with, because there are a lot of blueberries here already that I need to come through and just sort of weed around them and stuff. But I'll be able to get these blueberries into higher production as time goes on. And this whole area, looking at the back of the growing yard here, this is all wintergreen that I talked about in a previous video. This is what the fresh growth looks like. So this is this year's growth. It's kind of this tender greenish reddish color. And these last winter, they had so many berries on them, like just some of the highest density of wintergreen berries that I've ever seen anywhere. So that's kind of cool. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of an update. You can see it's the morning right now, so this is the one time of day that I actually have shade here. Once the sun gets out past these trees here, it'll be full sun all day long, and so it's very sunny. It gets very dry here when we don't have rain. But yeah, I wanted to just show you how things are coming along, and I'm starting to get more of an understanding about where I want to plant things. And really what I wanted to show is just what this place looks like in late spring. You've seen it in late winter, and it's really nice and green right now. So it's a lot of fun having the leaves out on the trees, and I'm looking forward to getting more shrubs and things in the ground. So I know it doesn't look like much yet, but I really just want to document the very early stages of what this looks like in the first year, when not that much is actually happening, because in future years we'll be able to look back and see, oh yeah, this is just to remember, oh yeah, this is what it used to look like, because I think as I get really moving here, it's going to look very different, and it's going to be hard to remember what it was actually like in the starting stage. And so a lot of times when we see like permaculture projects or people doing transformations of the yard, the starting point is very often like already a few years in. So it's fun to just get that perspective from the very start. And I hope this is interesting. It's not there's not a huge amount of action happening yet, but it'll be, I think as time goes on, there's going to be more and more, and you'll get to see what it looks like when I put those Saskatoons in the ground. And when I put those Kiwis in the ground, you'll get to see what the kiwi bush, what the kiwi vine actually looks like in a few years. And I have to figure out, how am I going to support all these vines and stuff, which is going to be a whole project in and of itself. Because with a low budget, I'm not going to be buying like expensive scaffolding and trellises and stuff like that. I'm going to be making all of that from low expense solutions. So I think it'll be pretty interesting as time goes on, and really appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.